United States of America. Eventually that led to most of our equipment having a moniker or a mark on it that said U States. That's how we would mark all of our equipment. We would also mark it with the 4 above an LD for light dragoons, and I'll show you that in a little bit. What we're going to do first is, there's only 3 of us. Our dear departed James was drugged to his demise yesterday, and he's not here. So we are going to demonstrate with 3 dragoons. But what I want you to understand is, at maximum strength, we may have had 251 dragoons, but we were never together. The only time we ever made it together is when we escorted His Excellency down to Yorktown with General Rochambeau. Then we fought together at Yorktown, and we split up again, eventually went further south to Virginia. But the whole time that we were formed, from the beginning of 1777 all the way to that time period, we were between Pennsylvania, West and East Jersey, New York, and Connecticut. And we were in small groups. So it's not uncommon to see 3 or 4 dragoons together, 1 of high rank and 2 regular dragoons riding into a camp. We escorted gold, we ran messages, we acted as couriers. For that whole time, we fought what was called the petite guerre, and in French that means small war or small fight. So we fought through the Jerseys all the way into New York, skirmishing with the British Dragoons and the British infantry. And basically what we did is we laid ambuscade waiting for them so we could take what they had. You hear the stories of the Continental Army and the militias marching in the snow with the bloody footprints because they had no shoes and they were half naked when they marched into Philadelphia. That was not the Dragoons. Folks, we were well equipped because we found the stuff that we needed along the way. Anything extra that we didn't use, we would forward to to His Excellency and the Continental Army. Colonel Moylan, our colonel, was very close with His Excellency, so we did a lot of work with him. That was part of, or the majority of what we did. When you see the big fights with horses rushing towards each other and sabers swinging and people shooting off their horses and stuff, it really was not like that in the Revolutionary War. I'll explain to you a little bit of all of our equipment after we demonstrate for you, do a couple maneuvers, and if it's like yesterday, the horses will not listen one bit to us and we'll look stupid, but hopefully that doesn't happen. And then I'll dismount and I'll explain everything that a dragoon carried, why they carried it, and what they actually did with it. And then we'll take all the questions that you want to ask. We'll be happy to answer. So what we're going to do first is we have a rank. It's called a form, rank, and tire, which basically is a rank of horses and mounted dragoons on there. Before we would go anywhere, we would count off by 2. So I would say 1, 2, 1, and then we would move like that. Unfortunately, we only have 3 people. Now, when we were formed, we drilled for several months to learn all these tactics. And then as soon as those months were over, we never used them again. We went right out into the wilderness, constantly doing whatever we had to do to find whatever our job was. But what we're going to do today is we drill quite often, and we'll do some of the maneuvers. They're basically going to be what's called a left or a right wheel, which means you'll see this whole line move like this, one way or the other. We'll break off from 3s to 2s to 1s, 1s to 2s back into the 3s. We might separate as skirmishers. Just all the different battle maneuvers that we would use. They're very basic, and they were very common if we had to use them in battle. So what we're going to do is we're going to go by file from the right forward march. Rank up. Rank up. Right wheel. One. And this is how we would maneuver, especially if we had an attack from the left. I could call a left wheel. Left wheel, march. Front. As skirmishers from the center, march. Mark. Mark.
Huh.
Pretty good, huh?
Yeah.
Mark, front. Dragoons, halt! Now, we could separate our groups and hit the enemy this way if we had to deploy as skirmishers. What we would do is we would run up, fire on them, hack them with a saber, do whatever we need to do. We could use a carbine, and then we would turn around, and then we might run away. All right? 5 file to the right, march. Form, single rank and fire. Right, field, march. Run. Right wheel, march. Dragoons, take care. Halt! Basically, they were the maneuvers that we used. They were very basic. We weren't a big fan of that.
Oh, fuck.
It's hard enough to get a man to fight on his own 2 legs, and you put them on 4 legs that don't belong to them, it makes it even worse. Alright, so once we get him settled down here, this one never settles down. That was basically the maneuvers that we used. Now, there are some 45-degree angles that we would do, but we worked in close, or we spread apart as skirmishers. When you see the infantry and the militia and the artillery marching, there would always be dragoons way out in front, way off on the side, and way in the back. We were either in the vanguard, which was up front, kind of the tip of the snowplow, or we were in the back or the sides, making sure that nobody was going to sneak up on them. And that's what we did. So what I'll do now is I'll dismount, and I'll show you a couple things that we have as far as what we have to carry. So Sebastian, step up here. Stay on your horse. Sebastian is armed to the teeth. In the beginning of our existence, we had a saber, which is off to his left side, so he could cross draw it. Right there. That's the saber. Hold on. Put it back down in there. We had a belly box that had the ammunition. He would normally have pistols. I'll show you them in a minute. And then back up. Hanging off to his side is a carbine. Now this has been cleared. This is an empty weapon. We cleared it this morning just to let you know. Is that light to carry? Nope, it's not. So if he was going along, this carbine would actually be in a bucket underneath his leg. The tip would be in a little hole in a little bucket. This would actually be strapped to him. So as he was riding along, he was stuck to this, and this was stuck to the horse. So if he came off, the horse was going with him. It just was going to be ugly. The 4th Light Dragoons were issued this is a 1767 French dragoon musketoon. It was very interesting. The French were a big help to us. Anybody who criticizes them for